84% of people in our region consider themselves Christians. That means the church is everywhere, in our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, government, healthcare systems, and more. Together, we have the power to transform our community so that everyone can flourish. But sometimes it's hard to see what role we can play and what difference we can make. So you're about to hear a story, and it's about an ordinary person helping our city flourish by integrating their faith into their everyday life. This is a story of the church Beyond the Pew.
So here at Fort Evansville, as we go through this series talking about stories Beyond the Pew, our team wants to share some things as well because this is our job. We get to be in these spaces a lot, and it's important for us to be able to share some of the moments we've seen ourselves. And so sometimes you're going to hear from our team as well. I'm Sarah, here at Fort Evansville, and I'm here with Adrienne, who you guys all know, who's usually the one asking the questions. And today we're going to hear a story from Adrienne. So Adrienne, share a little bit about maybe some experiences of you beyond the pew at this point.
My mom, she's a stay-at-home mom, and I, of course, was home a lot, and I kind of secondhandly watched her interact with our neighborhood. And at the time, this is all learning from reflection, really, because at the time, I honestly thought it was just a quirk of hers, but also like an inconvenience of mine, because she would involve me sometimes, but it was one of those moments where I realized she was in everyone's lives in our neighborhood. And it was like the neighbor next door, there was an elderly couple, and she kind of saw them through end of life. And we ended up going to both of their funerals, and just reflecting even at the funeral was like, my mom would take care of them, like physically take care of them, like even bathing them sometimes, and just like this really gritty work. And, as a little kid, I'm over there like, weird, just not wanting to go with her sometimes. Right. But even more just kind of fun stuff of like, hey, this neighbor's going out of town. Why don't you watch their dog? And me being like, okay, I can do that. But then I get a key to their pool. Like once I watch their dog enough, they trust me, And so I started seeing those benefits of being in other people's lives too. But, and again, she like down the street, there was another elderly man, and she just went and took care of him. But it was always these moments of like, how can I fill a need? Like just being able to talk to everyone. She was always just going out to the street, making phone calls to all their neighbors, just making sure she knew what was going on in their lives. And again, at the time I was like, oh, my mom just likes to talk. She's always on the phone, always talking to people. But it was really like she was listening well and being like, where can I step into that space? So as I, grew up, and there's so many sermons of like, who's your neighbor? And I found myself constantly, anytime I would hear those sermons, like what would play in my mind were those moments of my mom. She even would plug into church for things and be like, where can I fill a need? So sometimes she was cleaning the bathrooms of church whenever there was, the janitor was gone for the week or something, or a lady came to our church who had quadruplets. And so my mom would take me to her apartment, not a normal situation or people that we would have normally like been in contact with. And we would go and like sit with her babies and feed them and stuff so that she could get a moment. And here I am with my own twins. Like, that's a beautiful thing. That's a really beautiful thing for somebody to do. But again, it was like, oh, do we have to go over there? Their house is weird. And, all those things. But now I'm so grateful for those moments. So
did your mom ever talk about why she did those things?
She didn't. She may have, and it sunk in kind of subconsciously, but I don't ever remember her sitting down and saying exactly why she did those things. But it was, I know why. It wasn't unclear. Yeah. But it wasn't like a big conversations. And I do think I'm a learner by observation anyway. And so I think that was, she really, really taught by just doing it. And I saw that in my friends that was another moment that kind of hit me. Is my friends noticed, and most of them weren't believers, and they knew, like, they knew how they should act around my parents and comment on them being Jesus followers and stuff. But they were the ones that, I mean, I had a friend get a DUI, and I had to go pick him up. And the first thing he said he wanted to do was go to my house so he could talk to my mom. He knew exactly what she was going to say,
Yeah.
like, hey, you've got to turn your life around. I mean, he wanted to hear it, and he knew that she cared. And so just, being on the other side of that and being an adult myself, the first time I got a house in a neighborhood, I started realizing, like, I'm not so far away from my mom as I thought. And instead of seeing these as inconveniences, my heart has changed over time in hearing those who is my neighbor sermons and conversations, having those in my mind of the stories of my mom. I'm like, these are my literal neighbors. But my neighborhood is a really important place to bring the kingdom. And so in my own life, I've had those moments where I've been able to just listen well and meet them in moments in simple ways. Like a neighbor's mom died, and so I was at the store, saw some flowers, thought of her, brought them to her. Hadn't had that many conversations with her, but I just said, hey, I thought of you. Here's some flowers. And she was like, these are my mom's favorite flowers.
Whoa.
And, yeah. And I was like, that wasn't me. That was the Lord, And after that, I felt like our relationship changed. And honestly, now that I have twins, she cuts my grass.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my other neighbors, they're not a traditional family in any way. And but I have been trying to show them that we love them very much, and we do love them. But like, the cat died, really hard for them. So I made them a little like hot tea kit of like mugs and tea, things like that, and just took it over there and was like, I'm sorry, your pet died. I know that that's really important to you.
Yeah.
And just then they got a dog, and I was like, you guys don't have a backyard, but we do. So, and we have a fence. So anytime you like want your dog to run, just put him in our backyard, and that's totally fine. Just like sharing lives. And we've just seen good conversations happen because of that. But also what we talk about here is like, every person has value. And so I'm not seeing them as like, how can I serve them because they need to know Jesus? While that is a motivation, like, I need them. And I've seen that come up time and time again, especially in a neighborhood. There's trees that fall, and you need your neighbors to come and help you. There's, again, like I said, I have twins, and one neighbor cuts my grass. The other ones, we like started this big project in our yard, and we didn't finish it because twins. Yeah. And like, we start things and then we just completely can't finish them. And so those neighbors, the other ones came and finished it for us. They cleaned everything up, put it all in our trash cans, took our trash cans to the sidewalk and stuff. And while that's like embarrassing and humbling, it's like, that's what the kingdom is you're there for each other.
Starting in one block, in the block that you live. And I think it's important to go back and say, that your mom didn't like directly talk about why she did the things she did, but you watched it, you noticed it, and learned that, hey, this is how we care for people. And as you said, maybe teachings and learnings you've heard along the way to start to really become activated in your mind, because you're seeing real opportunities for that to be true in your life and the life of people around you. I love that you said you want to show up for them, but they show up for you.
Yeah.
Like, yes, as people, we are talking about these stories because, as we said in the opener, 83% of people in our area say that they're followers of Jesus and in some way, or people of faith in some way. And I think knowing that is like, okay, how can we just show up for people, but allow them to also show up for us, because that's really valuable and important for us to grow.
It is. Yeah. I feel like I've grown the most in humility in that way. And I will note, like, when my mom not talking about it, but she brought me along. And that is something we've talked about on the podcast a lot, is you need to bring somebody along with you so that they learn. And I think because she brought me along so many times, it stopped being embarrassing. I stopped seeing it as an inconvenience. And I'm seeing that in my own kids. It's like, hey, we're going to go do this. And it's like, oh, I don't want to go to the store again. Or like, I want to, I just want to stay home and do this. And I'm like, no, come with me and stuff. And then afterward, you can kind of see like, okay, that was nice or whatever. But I'm hope that I'm instilling those things in my own kids.
Yeah.
Because my mom brought me along, and I don't think I would have gotten so used to the idea if I hadn't have had those experiences.
Yeah. Great. Anything that you would, I guess 2 questions. Anything you'd say to your mom now after learning about that and processing this now and seeing it from this perspective? And second question, your mom didn't talk about it. Is there anything that you would say to your kids specifically as you're going through this as well?
What I would talk to my kids about? Well, first I would just say to my mom, thanks. And she knows that this is a big part of my life anyway already. So, but I don't know if I've directly ever said thank you for taking me along. But my own kids, I think I would try, maybe when they're older, just try to tell them again my motivation. Even what I've shared on here is like what God's kingdom is and how we can be a part of it, and inspire them to do the same and to see people through the eyes of Jesus rather than the eyes of inconvenience or something like that. But just that we love everyone and treat everyone like Jesus would.
And simple ways too. I love that too.
Yes, simple ways.
It doesn't have to be large projects, but
no, and it seems like always the simpler ways, or like the little, like kind of those drops in the bucket really add up more over time.
There you go. There's a story of some learnings, taking them outside of the space of the walls of an institutional church and right into your very life. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
You just heard a story of the church Beyond the Pew. At Fort Evansville, we believe that the church has the power to transform our community, but it doesn't always show up where and how it should. That's why we're on a mission to help Christians and churches discover the role that they can play in addressing our city's greatest needs. Are you passionate about seeing the church bring God's peace and justice throughout our city? If so, I want to invite you to join the Fort Evansville Collective, a community of people who are passionate about being the church beyond the pew and helping others to do the same. You can support Fort Evansville's mission and gain exclusive access to resources that will help you love our city well. Visit fortevansville.org/collective to learn more.